So I was nearing the end of my journey with Paul McCartney and the New World Tour. We just had 2 dates left in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and Santiago, Chile, and then everyone goes home. As I recall, we spent 3 days in Buenos Aires. So, and I think there was just one show. Paul would want to rest his voice between gigs. He was, 50 at the time? So I had plenty of free time. And on a tour like that, you don't really want to sightsee during your time off. You just want to lay around. They had a swimming pool in the hotel in Buenos Aires. So I would spend time there. And then instead of going out for nightlife, I would just go to the hotel bar. So for 3 nights, I went to the hotel bar. Same bartender, female bartender, each night. So I kind of got to know her a little bit. And, she was very friendly. She asked me, what do you think of Argentina? And I said, well, I know that it's famous for 3 things. She goes, what? I said, beef, cocaine, and beautiful women. And she said, oh, yeah, okay. And but you're not allowed to eat beef on this tour, right? I said, no, we're not. And she said, what about cocaine? I said, well, I don't know, maybe beautiful woman would be better. So that was the first night at the bar. Second night, I go to the bar again. She's there, and she slid a matchbox towards me, like a box that would hold wooden matches that, would be kept in the bar because you could smoke in the bars. And I said, oh, what's this? She said, look. And I looked, and it was full of cocaine. Like, oh, thanks. So I took it. I mean, I didn't ingest it. I put it in my pocket, and I was like, I really don't want to do this. And then, stupidly, we have to fly to Santiago in Chile. So I just put the cocaine in my carry-on bag and got on the airplane, which was not very smart, given, Paul's drug history with certain airports, like, in Japan. But I got away with it. I didn't even give it a thought until I got back to New York. What happened was on the 3rd night in Buenos Aires, and the next day we're going to fly to Chile. So the next day was the last day of the tour, and so they decided to throw a big party in some fancy bar somewhere in Buenos Aires, and it lasted all night. We're there all night. Finally, they had transportation for us back to the hotel, and the sun was coming up and stuff. And I was like, good Lord, in about 4 hours, we have to be at the venue for the final show. And one member of Paul's band had the room next to mine. So we were walking up the thing there, and he says, I don't want to say who it was, but he goes, well, that was a lot of fun, wasn't it, or whatever? And I said, yeah, it was great. I said, hey, I got some cocaine in my room. Do you want to do some? He's like, yeah, of course I do. So, we're snorting cocaine. And then maybe we snorted cocaine for like 30 minutes. And then he said, all right, I'm going to go to bed. And I said, all right, see ya. And of course I couldn't sleep. And next thing you know, it's time to go to the venue. And I was like, oh my God, I was starting to feel horrible by then. And I was supposed to shoot, I was the videographer, so I was supposed to shoot the concert. And and it was an outdoor arena, and I just found a place where all the trunks are staged and stuff, all the big equipment things are, and just laid down with my big camera and went to sleep. And I slept through the whole show, and nobody noticed, And then finally I woke up, and the show was just ending. And then I saw the guy, who I assume also hadn't slept, but he had to perform. And, I spent 5 hours laying on my back on the grass. And I was like, hey, man, how did it go there on the thing? Because, I tell you, I was feeling really bad before, and you don't look so good right now. He goes, oh, man, it was awful during the show. Paul kept looking at me, he says. And during Hey Jude, he gave me this really like dirty look or something like that. And I thought I must be playing really badly. And I just thought, listen, I might as well just, drop my equipment and just walk off stage. I'd quit, There's only one show left anyway. But I managed to get through it. And I think I was just being paranoid. I don't think Paul noticed anything about me. I said, all right, that's good. So the next day we fly to Santiago, me with my contraband practically on my person. And the show was at the Estadio Nacional, which is, a big stadium used for football and stuff. But, back in the old days under Pinochet, it was notorious for its use for mass imprisonment of political enemies, torture, and execution. So, the vibe in there was a little strange, but luckily I had sworn off drugs, and never took them again. So I got through that show and boom, went home. And that was the end of my experience with Paul McCartney. But I have more stories, so this isn't the end of the podcast. And, speaking of which, my job on the thing was to film Paul performing a lot, like in rehearsals in small rooms and stuff like that. And when I started this channel, that's what I was putting up, a lot of those things. So there's like probably 100, at least there's dozens and dozens of performance clips that I shot of Paul that you look around and check it out. I think you'll like it.